Everybody, it's the Mad Master here. I didn't want to do any videos today, but then I got inspired by watching this recent Jimmy Dore video with Max Blumenthal. And I just got to thinking that last year I wrote this journal, and this is like this is going to kind of tie the new age kind of woo stuff in with the current crisis that one of the current crises that we are in, and I'll tell you how this works. So this is completely going over the realm of weird into the realm of weirdness, but oh well. So I started this journal, this Joseph Ally manifestation journal last year. I actually stopped October of last year. Intermittently did this where you're supposed to write down these manifestation wishes, and well, the thing is, so when last year in March, when this whole thing started in, as far as in America and everything, I was really suspicious, and I still am, about the intentions of all this, and the C word, as far as all that goes. And I'm not going to say too much about that in this video, but I'm just going to say this. So I started writing down, well, now I think the more of the left will wake up. That was one of my things. Like, I wrote down, I could bring out the notebook if people want to see it. More of the left will wake up about this whole shebang, because I do think there are nefarious forces at work within regards to this current crisis. And nobody's going to dissuade that from me. Every day there's more evidence of it happening, including this Intercept article that happened a couple weeks ago. Now, do I think that there was I'm going to use code words, a leaky roof on purpose? I don't know. In the lab, was there a leaky roof on purpose? I don't know. I'm not sure, but more and more evidence points to very disturbing intent with regards to this. So I'm going to name a couple of people that I've seen come to the fray of the skeptical movement in regards to this crisis. And by the way, I've had the V, so it's kind of ironic that I'm doing this. Am I a hypocrite from the other side? Maybe a little bit. But I'm very skeptical of the government and all these things that are happening. So Jimmy Dore is one person that has really, and he was really come around to the being red pilled about the CV19, if you know what I mean. I'll just say CV19. So another person, these people just one after just falling like dominoes on the left, as far as the more skeptical left, the more dissident left. Michael Tracy. Now, he was actually a person that ironically worked for the Young Turks for a while back in like 4 or 5 years ago, and now I think he's going to college campuses and like protesting some of these not the mandate just to get the shot, but like some of the ridiculous closings of campuses that are like 98% had the shot, but they're still closing for cases. He goes out there and protests or something. I don't know if he's like bringing it up to the university's attention, like the university students. I'll have to follow up on that more. I haven't been following him as much the last couple weeks, but pretty crazy. This guy, total Young Turks kind of progressive liberal he's going just totally against a lot of what's going on. BLM, like I mentioned in one of my previous videos. So the BLM chapter in New York going against the mandates, at least how they're being implemented. Glenn Greenwald, of course, people have already canceled him and everything numerous times. Russell Brand, watch some of his recent material. Crazy. It just Russell, my liking of Russell Brand actually goes back before this crisis, by the way. I was always, yeah, he's kind of cringe in some ways. Like, just what the hell? I don't even know what he did. He's like a Kardashian. What do they do? What is he? What is he? Is he a comedian? Is he a musician? What does he do? I just don't get this celebrity. Like, is he just a celebrity that was married to Katy Perry? No. Well, I guess, he writes, he does comedy, and is an actor or whatever. But somehow he got famous and rich and stuff. And I was gonna buy his book Revolution a few years back. I was with one of my ex-girlfriends at this bookstore. I was like looking at it. I was like, this kicks ass. I want to buy this. I didn't end up buying it that day. I don't know if I was like, I had to like pay rent that week or whatever. But that was one thing. This was 2019. This was like, I was like interested in him as far as his ideas and stuff. So flash forward a few years later, he's totally on the he's red pilled about the CV19 at this point. In my opinion, he is. Let me think of others. Matt Taibbi is a little bit more about the censorship than that. And the divisiveness, but then rather than anything. Well, you watch some recent videos, you can see his Katie Porter, who's on there, is not. She's definitely more on the authoritarian side of the argument, of course, but at least Taibbi calls out a lot of the hypocrisy and bullshit, which he does. Let me see. I'm thinking of there's more. Hell, even Hard Lens Media was talking about some of the impact of this. These mandates and stuff. I mean, there's so many real progressives and leftists and liberals that are just like some of this stuff. I mean, even if they're just like soft, like a more soft version of it, like, yeah, I don't know about like a banning interstate travel for people that didn't take the jab. Like, I think that's like it's a spectrum even among people that are, on the left, how far they think the big tech companies and big PHA-MRA is going, But if you look at OpenSecrets.org, Pfizer gave $400,000 to the Biden campaign. So, I mean, this is not like unexpected. And, it's not like I'm saying the crisis didn't happen. The war in Iraq happened. Like the war between Iran and Iraq, Middle East was a mess. Oh, well, let's make some money off this crisis, right? So even if the chicken or the egg doesn't really matter, it doesn't really matter at this point. Just like with 9/11. It doesn't really matter if the Project for a New American Century predicted 9/11 or if they, there was some foreknowledge and they let it happen or whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's just it being used. Even people I know who are reasonably intelligent will say, well, I don't agree with what they did, what they used 9/11 for, even if they don't think it's a conspiracy or whatever. So, but on the left, yeah, people are waking up to a lot of the tyranny and authoritarianism. And I'm not talking about the whole left, and it's very much the more dissident left, a modern version of Noam Chomsky, modern versions of those, or of Howard Zinn or whatever. It's not necessarily people that are, like in the mainstream at all. But I consider like Glenn Greenwald and Matt Taibbi like two of the like biggest names in journalism. I consider Jimmy Dore is a huge YouTube star. I mean, it's not, his former company, the Young Turks, that he was part of, obviously who hate him now. Obviously I believe they're larger, but they, Joe Rogan. Let's talk about Joe Rogan. And I know Joe Rogan's a controversial figure, and he's kind of a bro dude. I buzzed my hair, not because of Joe Rogan. It doesn't have nothing to do with that, but so yeah, Joe Rogan. I mean, ostensibly he's on the left. People consider him kind of a populist left, libertarian type. I mean, it's funny because Kyle Kolinsky is like all chummy with Joe Rogan, but Kyle Kolinsky is more on the slightly more on the mainstream side of what to do with the CV19. So, and maybe I'm a little bit more like moderate than I used to be, like, because I still believe like mass testing is mass rapid testing, like with the Michael Mina, saliva tests would have been a good way to democratize testing instead of having it in the hands of the corporations, and have people given the choice. Like, you have a bar that has this huge show. We're going to have 3,000 people at this club or whatever. Oh, we have these rapid tests. You can just spit on them, and then we have to do one or two more, and then it takes about 10 more minutes. Instead of having to like put something up your nose and then sending it to a lab that takes like, 10 hours or whatever, which is, the bottlenecks any business. So, I mean, you think about how that worked with all that. It was a mess. So, and even, obviously, people will say, oh, the testing doesn't work anyways, it doesn't, well, yeah, maybe there are a lot of flaws with it. There's a lot of flaws with testing for any virus. So, the virus! I couldn't resist. That was my old videos I used to do last year. That voice. But, so yeah, I think a lot of people on the left have waken up to some of the tyranny and some of the authoritarianism that's coming from this crisis. Even Kyle Kolinsky, who ostensibly you could say he's pro mandate because he was pro the employment mandate, has come out against Fauci for various things. Also, he's questioned the censorship, and I think he is definitely teetering on the edge of being a fence sitter in many ways for many other reasons, not other than this crisis. I do not agree with his takes on a lot of things nowadays. He's a little bit more mainstream establishment. I actually did resub to his channel, but like I know he's teetering to becoming irrelevant and stuck in his partisan bubble, just like the Young Turks. But will it happen? I don't know. He's pretty consistent as far as his thing. I just happen to disagree with him on this subject, like I do. And I've lost some friends over this subject because I, kind of dug in. On social media, I've stopped arguing with people about it, though. A lot of the time, I choose to kind of just ignore it at this point, because a lot of things just get to be a mess when I comment on some person's profile, like who's pro booster, like, oh my god, I mean, like healthy people that are pro booster, like people that are younger and still want to get one, like they think it's some imperative or something, when all these studies, including like the FDA, or not these studies, but like the FDA controversy with all that. I hope this is not going to trigger anything with the new guidelines too, but yeah, people are becoming more red-pilled about the whole thing with the CV19, and that includes a lot of people on the left, and it's a good moment that we can say that, just like after 9/11, I think enough people wake up that then we will resist and win against some of the ridiculous stuff. Look at what happened with Norway, supposedly, and Denmark and some other countries in Scandinavia. Apparently, they're going to release all, they're going to rescind all restrictions and mandates. And it's like, well, should they wait until the winter and see what happens? I don't know. Who knows what'll happen? Maybe they'll go back into full lockdown in a month or two or whatever. Who knows? But it is a good trend if they don't suffer a lot of consequences from it for whatever reason. Then it's a good sign that maybe eventually people will come to their senses. I think personally, my political take on this is that the Democrats and the blue check mark liberal establishment has lost their fucking mind. And this happened when Trump, ran for president. Once that happened, they would, just like the whole Clinton thing that's happening right now. I'm not as well read about what's happening with her lawyer or whatever with the Russiagate stuff. There was some really damaging stuff about her lawyer and stuff, or the Clinton's lawyer, that one of the Clinton lawyers that basically got Russell Brand sort of canceled. So I haven't read up enough about that whole thing. Better sources on YouTube than I am, or other sources out there. I'm not quite sure about that. I got kind of sick of the Clinton thing after a while. I'm just like, yeah, she's, they're shit. They're not the shit. They're like the '90s term, the shit. They are shit. They're shitty people. They're corrupt. Who knows about all the stuff that they do, nefarious stuff. I liked Clinton in the '90s for a while, but that was everybody that was naive and a Democrat back then. It was like, he's a Democrat. He's better than the Republicans. So he's a Democrat, so I like him. I don't care what, I'm gonna ignore everything bad he does and just like him because he's a Democrat. He has D after his name. Sometimes people are in these traps of these partisan bubbles so deeply that they don't even realize that they're doing that. Like they're brainwashed into this, if you want to use the word brainwash, into those types of boxes. I think the Democratic Party should be destroyed and decimated. And same with the Republican Party. I think the party's system is at this point needs to be demolished, or like having a moratorium for like 100 years, so people just run as independent candidates with no money in politics too, until our country heals from the last 80 years or so of imperialism and corporatism and all the authoritarianism that we've supported around the world. Maybe it's coming back to roost now. It's like the United States have supported all these dictators around the world for 80 plus years, and even before that, if you want to really look at it. But maybe it's like, well, it's our turn to be authoritarian, I guess, about one thing. So who knows? But yeah, the left is waking up. I'm glad. It's about time that we question the contradictions and the hypocrisy and the overreach. And it saddened me last year when a lot of people on the left were like, we gotta do this. I don't care about temporarily destroying my own liberties. I don't care. It's because we have to fight this. People said that during the 9/11, too. And I was like the one that said, people think I've changed, or Glenn Greenwald has changed, or anybody, but it's like, no, we haven't changed. We just remain consistent while everybody else changes. That's what happened. I was always saying that stuff about 9/11. It's like, oh my God, well, the what about our civil liberties, the Patriot Act and all that stuff? I was like, well, they're like, oh, we gotta fight the terrorists before they can come here and kill us all. Oh my God, I want Big Daddy government being able to spy on me all the time. Govern me hard, Daddy, just like that meme going around says. It's pretty funny. So, before I blather on, I'm just going to say, I knew that if the truth about things that are going on, or the contradictions and lies that we've been told, would come out in a real concrete way, that many on the left would come along. Many on the left are not, of course, but many on the left, the more dissident left, which I've always supported, because I bought my first Chomsky book in '98 or '99, and I bought like 6 or 7, and I think he's jumped the shark, might I add, in a lot of ways, but he's like 95 years old or something. So, you talk about Beijing Biden being demented, Beijing backtracking Biden. But, I think Chomsky might actually be losing his cognitive function, because he is almost like 100 years old. Doesn't mean you have to if you're 90 years old. My grandfather was a radical until he was like 88 years old, So, you can't, it's not everybody, but, a lot of people will, you're probably more likely to be like that. But the new Chomskys that are coming up, the Tracys, the Greenwald. Tracy is not always the best guy either, but, the Michael Tracys, the Glenn Greenwalds, the Taibbis, trying to think of more. There are a lot more who are on Substack and stuff that I read they're kind of coming to see what is going on with this, and they're seeing, that this is not a good precedent. This is not, mission creep may come in, where the slippery slope. That's what the danger is. So pushback is necessary. A correction is necessary. That's what we have to do. We have to correct out of this. We have to stop these from, affecting other things. The danger of mandates isn't that it's going to end the pandemic. The danger is that they keep going on and go for unrelated or unnecessary things. That's the main concern of people on the left that are questioning it. It's not about, and obviously people on the right wingers are like, there is a portion of right wingers that just don't want to get the jab, or just don't want to, just think it's not a big deal, the CV19, and that is people's opinion, obviously. But at the same time, the people on the left do not want these things to be used for other things, just like after 9/11. It's like, well, yeah, okay, maybe what happened, and just like they said it did, maybe the 13 hijackers or whatever with box cutters on a plane, blah blah blah, and maybe it did happen that way, right? Let's just assume that it did. Doesn't mean that we have to lose our essential liberties and our privacy, our Fourth Amendment rights, which were lost after 9/11. So these same liberals, some of the same liberals, mind you, are finally stepping up to the plate, and that's going to cause hopefully an avalanche of people getting together. I mean, Biden's approval rating is at like 43%, and a lot of that's over the CV19. It's the truth. I mean, I think you have a few coronatarians in there too. They're like mad that he didn't lock down. I'm sure that's part of like lockdown for 18 more months or something like that, or put a mask on, put like a quadruple N95 on every man, woman, and child, and give them UBI for those 18 months or whatever. I'm sure there's a few people like that, but people are not gonna have it. People are fatigued, for real too, and the fatigue and the disdain and everything hopefully will not lead to more apathy, but lead to more realizations that these power structures that we've been trusting for all these years are corrupt to the core. And this is nothing new. This is not a new thing. This whole crisis is not, it's just the trigger point for this fall of these old structures and these old ideas. I mean, they were even talking about that in astrology like 4 years ago, about this time we're in now. Maybe it's a coincidence, like Carl Sagan saying, oh, it's just a coincidence the Hindu calendars said all the, fucking atheist materialist nonsense, like just having to like say everything's a coincidence, It's just like someone saying, I had a kid, but it's just because a vagina fell on my penis, coincidentally, instead of thinking there's any cause and effect, or it's just so stupid. But anyways, I'm not going to go on a rant about that today. The thing that is that we're at this precipice of the civilization. It's a different age we're living in a different age, and whether or not you believe in astrology is saying that, or the Fourth Turning writers said that, which is a very interesting sociological book and concept, and whether or not you believe one or the other, which is the Fourth Turning is more a material study of history than astrology, right? We are at a different age, but there will be resistance, and these power structures will fail. And so, looking at that, now that I realize this, now I'm thinking about this back to this Gordon White podcast I was listening to a couple of months ago, where he said all this stuff will fail, all these this push for totalitarian, technocratic, whatever. So they'll fail. They will. They'll try their hardest, which they are, but they will fail. I really hope this passes YouTube muster, but I don't know. If it may not, I may not get this on the platform. But yeah, it will fail. All the push for all this stuff, I think, eventually will fail. Maybe not to the extent that people want, but it will at least be pushed back or peeled back. Because I don't think humans, because these people in power, and I've said this, I think I did say this in a recent video, or maybe on my podcast, which I'm recording as we speak, not right now, but as we speak, like through the weeks, my next podcast episode. These people underestimate what it's like to be human in emotion, as far as interaction with other people. Just, these billionaires and these technocrats and these corporate people, corporate honchos or whatever you want to call them. They misunderstand and they underestimate humanity, because they're in this bubble of their lives and their little ideological box that they're in, and they don't really see the forest from the trees, and they don't really know how to look at humans, really. Because a lot of them, if you read John Ronson's The Psychopath Test, a lot of CEOs are psychopaths and sociopaths. It's just the truth. I mean, it doesn't mean that you have to be, or it doesn't mean that's one way to get to be a CEO or something, but a lot of these people are very much disconnected from human empathy and reality. And that's part of the reason why something like The Best and the Brightest, with Robert McNamara, which I talked about my Vietnam video more recently, he was just about numbers. And I think a lot of autistic spectrum people get rich too, and they understand numbers and these ideas, these statistics, and looking at things on a plotted chart, and then they don't think about the human side, which bites them in the ass at the end. That's what happens. That'll happen in Australia. They'll try to push as hard as they can, but that's the whole point. Why people are pushing back is because these implementation of these policies, these ideas, these mandates are so detached from humanity. There's no empathy in mandating someone to put something in their body that they don't want to, without any type of support or any kind of apology, explanation, any kind of real incentive to do so. There's no humanity in that, especially with something, to be quite honest, that a lot of people are not as much at risk for, period. A 6-year-old is not at risk. If you look at the stats, they're not at risk compared to even meningitis or something, So that's the whole point, is that they are playing with fire. The elites, they're playing with fire. They are not looking at this in the right way, because they do not understand humans. And another thing about the Gordon White podcast, it's about chaos magic and all this stuff. He talked about the archons and no, I'm tying comic books into this, but Grant Morrison's The Invisibles, where there's these archons and what the archons represent. These people in power, these elites, they're like the archons. They don't understand humanity. Humanity, the human spirit, will defeat their worst tyrannical schemes and ideas. So we can look forward to that in the next 3 or 4 years. That's going to happen. That's pretty much been what's plotted out. Whoever plots this whole thing, getting on a more esoteric spiritual level with that, but that's what we're looking forward to. There will be blood drawn. Don't get me wrong. There will be a lot of chaos, of course, in the next 2 years at least. But who knows what'll come out of it? I think, I have hope that better things will come out of it, more understanding of other people. This whole crisis has turned me around in many ways, because in the beginning, it's just a typical misanthropic, low self-esteem metalhead that was, watching the news and, of course, I was like pretty much a dissident at a certain point, but just like seeing how people have reacted and dehumanized each other through this whole thing, regardless of what side you're on, really has gotten to me and it's made me become a better human. I've watched, actually, I do like Matt McKinley's work on some of this stuff. I don't agree with a lot of what he says about some of it, but I think what he talks about, like the spiritual aspect of a lot of this, it's very true. And early on, I watched a lot of people that said there was a spiritual aspect to this, and just the test that we're going through, the test of being what it's like to be a human, not to lose that humanity, not to lose that, not to be a machine, a statistic, or subhuman, or whatever you want to call it. So however you want to call that. I don't mean like animal. I mean like more like an inhuman person. But those are just some thoughts. I don't know everything. It's running into 30 minutes now. It was originally just going to be about the left waking up to the being more red-pilled about the crisis, but it's interesting to think about how this video evolved into this weird rant about this stuff. But anyways, that's about all.